Hi everyone, welcome to the first of a new series on Talking Stox, the Talking Stox Zoom debate. I'll be discussing a topic each month with invited guests, including previews and reviews of major events, major talking points of the past 4 weeks, or in this month's case, all-time BriSCA F1 top 10s. We kick off our top 10 series with the top 10 biggest hitters of all time. By that, we don't mean the biggest hits per se, as there would be plenty of candidates for that, but those drivers who are regarded by their peers as the toughest competitors on track, the real hard men, the ones that had you looking in the rearview mirrors expecting a hit at any moment, and more often than not receiving it. To go through Talking Stox' first top 10 list, I'm joined by former head of the Barmy Army and current Stox Karts head honcho Ian Higgins, and one of the sport's top photographers and former driver himself, Colin Casserley.
Well, hi then, gentlemen. I've got Ian here and Colin. So, right, what I was going to do before we sort of got into our top 10 list of biggest hitters, I was going to talk about the ones that didn't make it. There are one or two I considered putting in, but I thought better of it. And the one that comes to mind first and foremost is Tom Harris. Now, the thing is, he's often regarded as, he's called the Hitman is his sort of nickname. But the way I see it, when he goes for his big hits, he often gets it wrong. He doesn't. The whole point of a big hit is to eliminate your opposition, but not to eliminate yourself. And what tends to happen with Tom is the hits he comes up with are usually revenge hits, and they're not. They're not there to serve any other purpose than to wreck the other guy. And, in most cases, Dan Johnson, in the past, maybe Frankie Wayman to a certain degree. But he never really, he never really got them right because he used to always put himself in as well. And they were never a time when would actually create the most damage for the other rival. It wasn't like a big event or anything. It's often in a heat or something like that. So what do you think?
Tried at the Seggy World Final, didn't he? But Tom Frank, and then again,
true.
Himself out. Yeah. Well, like you said, the thing is, he put some big hits in. Doesn't always get away with them. Another one that I considered was like Richard Pratt.
Yeah, he was another example. Yeah, with Lundy or whatever. He used to,
9 times out of 10, Richard would do it, and he'd be in the wires with them as well. So
yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Colin?
Well, I kind of agree with you in a way, but having raced myself a little bit, not very well, I never hit anybody successfully without taking myself in, because it's bloody difficult.
Yeah.
You're already going as fast as you think you possibly can, and then you got going even deeper and hit somebody and stay out the fence yourself. So it's not as easy as it looks. Some drivers make it look easy.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Like Colin said, there are plenty of drivers that, like we've mentioned, Tom and that can put people in and go in with them and not afraid to do it.
Yeah.
I've always said all along, there's an art. There's an art to doing it. You want to do it, and you try keep on going. That's where the art comes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've obviously discussed our top 10 drivers that were at that sort of level, who had the art of putting someone in the fence to maximum effect without actually eliminating their own chances as well. And there are other drivers who haven't. I think all three of us. I'll put up our top 10 list up in a moment, but there were quite a few drivers who we didn't put in. There's another one I think of is Jane Bean. She was another real hard driver. Yeah, I forgot about her. I thought because she was quite a tough nut.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And but there are so many that I've forgot to put Mick Sauder in. Mick can hit people hard.
Yeah,
and I've done in the past. But yeah, there's plenty of drivers out there who can hit hard.
Yeah,
and there are others who just haven't got the art of it. And
no,
it's I say not as easy as it looks.
No,
and the ones who do it are bloody good at it.
Yeah, another one that came to mind for me was I haven't put it in. I know we talked about him a while back. Was Russell Taylor? There was another one who was another tough nut.
See, like you say, that's one that's come to mind with me all of a sudden. Is about Shuggy, you know.
Yeah.
There's hard drivers, hard men, but then it's like the big hitters. There are so many. And I think also it's a generational thing, you know. Colin, well, all three of us, I think, have been watching quite a long time, but there's certain sort of drivers that stick out from generations, so to speak. I mean, for me, a lot of it is the ones that I've picked are ones that I sort of race with and have often been on the receiving end of.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You two probably have been on the receiving end of one or two of the people on your list, actually.
Well, one is in my list purely for a hit he gave me at Northampton one time.
I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll put up your list now. I'll put Ian's up first. It'll come up behind me on my screen. See if it'll come up. Come on.
I didn't actually give you mine in order. I just sort of said no particular order.
Well, I've put them in number order as they were, you know, as drivers. So this is Ian's top 10 biggest hitters list. So we've got 33 Peter Folding, 64 Kev Smith, 197 Ryan Harrison, 286 John Toulson, 293 Gordon Smith, 318 Bob Speak, 354 Richard Ainsworth, 383 Dave Johnson, 390 Stuart Smith Jr. and 471 Bobby Burns. Right, so that's your list. We won't. I'm going to ask you in a minute if you can remember your 10 down to 6. But before we do that, I'll just give Colin's list next if I can find it. So it should come up very soon. I hope it does. Come on.
There might be a few the same in my list.
Yeah. Hang on. Here we go. Colin's list. Right. 18, Richie Ahern. 34, Mal Brown. 53, John Lund. 64, Kev Smith. 197, Ryan Harrison. An interesting one. 241, George Rudd. 267, Ian Ireland. 318, Rob Speak. 390, Stuart Smith Jr. and 391, Stuart Smith Senior. Right, so that's yours. And then my list, if I can find it. Wait for my machine to hurry up. There we go. Right, here's my top 10 biggest hitters. 33 Peter Folding, 64 Kev Smith, 175 Glyn Percy I put in, 197 Ryan Harrison, 293 Gordon Smith, 318 Rob Speak, 390 Stuart Smith Jr., 391 Stuart Smith Senior. I'll put this one in right at the last minute just because I just forgot about it. 445 Nigel Green and 471 Bobby Burns. So there we have our list.
I wouldn't disagree with any of any of us have put in.
No,
they're all good.
Yeah,
good
absolutely. Yeah, it's just who do you put? The hardest bit was putting them in some sort of order. But there's only one that I knew I'd have as number one. I've got a number one, which that wasn't going to change, but it was putting all the others in what order. And so, right. So let's go back to Ian's list, if I can find it. Right, here's Ian's. Right, okay. Ian's 10th down to 6th.
For me, Dave Johnson.
Dave Johnson.
More so in his earlier days, when he didn't quite have the kit that he had towards the end. Pre-folding cars, I would say, but even with the folding cars, he had some good ones.
Yeah,
the car on the picture behind you there is
trying to get out of the way. Yeah,
Long Eaton, Afraid of Nobody, and I've seen him put some people in big time. At Coventry and Long Eaton, basically, when Cov was post and wire.
Yeah.
Dave was a hard driver that just did put in some big hits, often over the top. But I think, again, what we said earlier, I think some of it was almost a lack of experience.
Yeah.
Kit wasn't quite up to it. He just kept his foot pegged and prayed, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, he was a big man, with a obviously big right foot. So, I mean, that was, I mean, I must admit, I remember, obviously, when he was more of a leading driver, and he was always a bit of a hard man, I always thought. But yeah, definitely an interesting one to be in a list. I wouldn't have considered him personally, but I'm glad he's put in. It's nice to have someone different rather than the usual names that you hear coming in. So what about ninth?
In ninth, Gordon Smith.
Right.
I didn't watch a lot of Gordon, to be honest. He was sort of there when I sort of started, but I remember him, particularly at Rochdale. I remember him getting put in the fence down by the Hornet's Nest, jumps over the fence straight into the bar, goes and gets a pint while the car's still stuck in the fence. But
He was
I think
a real
if you were
character.
to ask any of the top drivers back then, I think Gordon was one you didn't want to be on the receiving end from.
No, definitely not.
Very, very hard driver. You know, as I say, I was quite a young kid when I watched him, but he was one that always stood out to me at Rochdale. He'd move anything that was in front of him.
He was pretty tough at Aycliffe as well, because my brother was leading the final there and Gordon took him out.
He did it for a reason, didn't he?
Yeah, because he did it because he didn't want to see a Southerner win up at Aycliffe. So kind of half apologised for taking him out. He said, but I'm not letting a Southerner win up here.
Well, it was as you probably both know, he was a personal favourite of mine. The one occasion I actually had to go in a BriSCA F1, I used his number 293. So yeah, I was a kid, young kid growing up. Watched him when I was about 14, 15, 16 when he was in his heyday, and he was just sensational driver to watch because he was spectacular. You know, at Nelson, at Rochdale, and places like Bellevue and wherever. He was just always flat chat all the way around. Even if he was in trouble, and he got in some real nasty rollovers and things, he'd have his foot flat to the floor even then. So he was a hell raiser one way or another. So yeah,
he didn't back off at all, did he? Didn't back off.
No, absolutely not. Fantastic.
An interesting sideline to it is I actually got to know him. He built for my old man Dennis. Dennis had the first ever indoor skateboard arena in the UK. And Gordon built it, laid all the concrete and tar, and did it all in over in Halifax.
My goodness me, that's incredible. That brilliant stuff.
So that's why we sort of watched him a little bit when I was younger, because he'd done a load of work for my dad. He was foot flat down. It didn't matter whether he had punctures, whether it was towing out 10 inches or whatever. He just kept his foot in, didn't he?
He did, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, then what about 8th?
Number 8, I've gone for Kev Smith.
Yep.
People might be surprised at that, might have thought he'd be a little bit higher than that. I always got on great with Kev. I never had an issue with him. We never had a run-in. But sometimes with Kev, I felt he was a little bit, almost like you said with Tom. Kev, the art is to put him in and get away with it, which he did the classic at the Skeggy semi-final, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
But once or twice I'd seen him get it quite wrong. But, he had the elephant he never forgot, but it's just that some of the others that I've put in front of him, I've sort of seen, I can't say a little bit more class or finesse. Kev did brilliant with the equipment he had.
He didn't have high tech kit, did he? Really, let's face it.
Not in the early day. I mean, at the end he had a decent engine. Limited, but his car was still leaf sprung and whatever. And he gave it everything, did Kev. But I was debating whether to put him higher up on the list or not. But no, he's coming as my number 8 as Kev.
Right, number 8 is Kev Smith. Right, number 7.
Number 7, I've gone for Ryan Harrison.
Right.
In all honesty, I haven't. The last few years, I haven't seen a lot of F1 racing. But the times that I have, and I've seen Ryan race, he means business.
Yeah, he does.
And at the end of the day, he gets a lot of bad press. Some of it he brings on himself, I think. But when you actually speak to him, he's actually a nice guy. But he uses the bumper, and he does it properly, in my opinion. I think he's good to watch. Even like we were saying last weekend, he went for a last bender. In a way, he was sort of half never going to get it. He was halfway around the bend before he caught Jack. But even then, when he spun him and he was trying to get round the back of him, he just kept his foot in. You know? And unfortunately, he came out of it the worst. But but
it's entertainment, isn't it? This is what it's all about. As other drivers often said. I mean, Stuart Smith Jr. always famously has always said that stock car racing is entertainment, and we're there to entertain.
Yeah.
And Ryan does it better than most. You know,
I think he does. And I
whether
think
you like him or loathe him, it matters not to
Marmite.
him. Yeah, he is. You know, well, a few drivers are, aren't they, out there? I mean, I think Tommy's to one or two. I mean, even Frank. You know, but you know, it's he's just, you know, he's good value. You know, you can, as long as he doesn't load up, he's good value. You know, so he's
yeah.
So and then so 6.
So number 6, I've got John Toulson.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Being a northerner, obviously, I was raced with John quite a bit at the likes of Aycliffe, Hartlepool. A lot of people always classed him as a tarmac man, but I saw him at Sheffield a couple of times. I think it was Phil Hemingway he put in at Sheffield. Oh, Jesus, wet. Phil Hemingway had the old Glen Fursey car, and oh dear. I mean, there's another one actually, Phil Hemingway. He was a hard driver with a big hitter, but no, Toulson. Before he had that shape of car that you got behind him, the Dave Seatbill ones.
Yeah.
He, you know, I think every driver at the time knew that you didn't want to get on the wrong side of him. You know, him and Wolfie up at Aycliffe had to do where they ended up on the middle tickling each other.
Yeah. Was that all just for show? That presumably was it?
I think it started a bit where they were going to have a go at each other, and then it was just like, you know, what's the point? Let's just, you know, make a bit of a show of it.
Yeah.
But,
it was a famous incident, that, wasn't it? There's photos of that somewhere.
He was a big, scary bloke in his butcher's jacket. You know,
yeah.
I don't know if he'd be able to race now. I don't think they do pro-am butcher's jackets, do they?
Yeah, let's have a look. Here he is, looking all mean and hard.
Happy looking chap, isn't he?
Cheerful. You see pictures of him now. I've seen. I mean, I'm a Facebook friend with him. I don't know him at all, but he's always really happy and jolly these days, I think. And you know, he doesn't. But in those days, he's always, you know, you can see he's almost sort of fuming at something. He's all seething about something. But yeah, another real character. Yeah, real character. Great driver too.
Yeah.
It's how Graham Robson got into racing, because I think Graham's dad knew John back in the day.
Right. Oh yeah.
Graham used to do the tractors at Hartlepool when John and Joe were in it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something I didn't know. Cool. Right. So now we can go over to, because we'll talk about, have quite a few of these that will come up again and again, I'm sure. But right, and Colin, you're 10 down to 6. 10.
Right, my number 10 is Mel Brown.
Right.
That might surprise a few people. He's not always a massive hitter, but he gets stuck in and it doesn't matter who's in front of him, who's behind him. He doesn't move out of the way, and he hasn't done that since he started racing. Christ knows how many years ago. And he's always in the thick of the action. And it's just one of the drivers that fans like to see, because they don't want to see people moving out of the way. I mean, I did when I was racing. I moved out of the way because I didn't want to get hit. But Mal is a sort of guy who just sticks in there, and when he hits people, he can hit people hard when he wants to. You know, you wind him up. He's a bit of a laid back character normally. You wind him up, and he will hit him hard. So that's why he's in there for me.
Yeah, you knew if you hit him, you had to make sure you got enough. You hit him good enough that you got enough room. He couldn't get you the next corner. That was it with Mal.
Yeah. He's one of those. You know, he'll give it out. He'll take it, and just come off as though nothing has happened. I don't think he didn't take it off into the pits where some people do, and that's, you know, what stays on the track, or what happens on the track should stay on the track.
Interesting. So I remember last summer, she was a Bradford World Final meeting, and all throughout that meeting, right, even, you know, the dash for the casting at the end or whatever, he just would not move out of the way, you know, and he would get stuck, and he was, you know, and he's not a young man anymore, you know, but he doesn't, you know, he's fearless, and he's the sort of driver you need out there to stir it all up, just to cause issues for those top drivers trying to come through. They, you know, they're going to have to work if they're going to want to get by him. There's a bit like there's a few others in the past. Was it Nigel? Who's it? Nigel Hardy? What's his name?
Nigel Hardy.
He was another. He was another one, wasn't he? Yeah.
He was a hard driver. I've got personal experience of him being a hard driver. When you travel all the way up to Hartlepool and only do half a lap because Nigel Hardy put you in the fence twice. And you remember people like that.
Yeah, he was a tough one, I know.
It's what people class as a proper stock car driver, one who just get stuck in no matter what. Doesn't
Didn't
matter
he-
what grade you
In
are.
one particular world final, was it at Bellevue or somewhere, and he wouldn't move out of the way for someone who was trying to get through? I'm trying to remember who it was. It might have been one of the ones that it was either one that Stewart won there in '84 or maybe before then. I'm not sure, but he was a problem for someone. I remember that. So what about number 9 then? Is that number 9?
Number 9. I've got Ian Ireland, I think.
267 E9. I know he was, a tough driver actually. Even though he says so himself often.
Yeah.
He did. He told me when I went interviewing for the book, he would, I'll put this person away, that person away, and they wouldn't mess with me. He likes to tell the story, but he was
a tough driver. I think he became more tough in his latter years. He wasn't so tough when he raced with BriSCA because he probably didn't have the equipment.
No.
But when he went to Scota, he bought that car from Mike Lewis with that massive Chevy engine in it, and he built his own car. And when he was racing in Barlow, he was just an animal.
Did he get escorted out of Barlow once?
Oh, more than once, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I think so.
I remember a story that they had to escort him out the place for his own safety.
I think that happened to him in South Africa as well. Apparently, when he raced out there for a bit, he had an incident where they had to get him out pretty smartish because he'd upset the local gangsters, I think, who were running the show there. From what I recall,
wouldn't surprise me with Ian. I mean, he was one of the drivers who just got on with it and hit people for the fun of it.
That's the car you're talking about.
That's the car, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him coming back when the first time Scota went over to Barlow when they used to run the rodeo cars in with the stock cars, and he used to go and hit the rodeo cars as hard as possible because they had windscreens in and windscreen wipers, and he'd like to see them all fly off. So, and I think that probably when he started doing that, that's probably when he got set upon and had to be escorted out.
Because, bound to be.
Yeah. It was a tough driver, but like I say, more so when he got the better equipment towards the end of his career, really.
So what about number 8?
Number 8, I've got George Rudd.
Yeah, that was the interesting one I was wondering about. George Rudd.
Chopper Rudd.
Chopper Rudd, mate.
Yeah.
Don't know much about George, I have to say. It's not someone I came on my... I remember him, but I don't remember much about him. I can only find one picture of him.
Yeah, should have said I've got another picture where he's...
I'll get him out of the way.
When I was a little... I had a run-in with him at Brayfield.
All right.
And that's why he's in my top 10.
Thought
because
he would be.
My mum didn't come to watch me race very often, but she come to a meeting at Brayfield, and George put me in so hard the roll cage snapped off the chassis, and I was a little bit concussed after that one, I must admit. And I come back to see my mum, and mum said, "You all right?" I said, "Oh yeah, fine." White as a ghost and not wobbling all over as I was drunk. She goes, "I'm your mum. I know you're not."
So what was his reason for putting you in so hard? Did he just hold him up for too long?
I think he just put anybody in, and I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he did put me in. But he's one of them again, another driver who hit people rather than win races. I think he just preferred hitting people. Yeah, and
some people do. I mean, people just go out there for the fun of hitting cars and crashing. That's what a lot of drivers.
That was his reason for being out there.
Yeah,
but he's in there purely because he gave me the biggest hit when I was racing, the biggest one I ever received by a long way.
What about number 7?
Number 7, I've actually got Ryan Harrison again. Number 7.
Oh, right, okay.
It's the same as Ian. Ryan's very misunderstood, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
He races hard. He races for the win, like he did at Northampton on Sunday. He said to me, I can't remember where it was. It was earlier this. Oh, it was the Grand National at Kings Lynn when he could have settled for second, having won heat and final. He could have settled for second.
That was another great.
He went for it on the last bend. He didn't get it, but he said, "I'm here to win, not to finish second."
Yeah, absolutely.
And as Ian said, he is a nice guy.
Yeah.
But a lot of people approach drivers when they've just come off the track, and you're wound up, and you drive your road car on the motorway, and you kind of get all tense about it. And multiply that 10 times in the race situation, you're wound up, you've done something you didn't want to do, you haven't won, and people I'll give you a come and say, "Oh, how you doing, mate?" And you might get a short shift. And there's times and places to approach drivers, and often people approach drivers when they've just come off after a bad crash or whatever.
Yeah.
And they get the answers they shortchanged. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You go back and ask them an hour later, and you get a totally different person.
Yeah, I mean, I spent time with Ryan when I did one of the books of not Sound Fury. What was it? Shock and Roll. And yeah, I had a great time with him. He's really top lad, to be honest. And he, like I say, he gets misunderstood sometimes. And I know he's got the reputation occasionally of putting in, lower graders and all that sort of stuff, but he had done in the past anyway. But he's out there to move people out of the way and win races. So if they're a low grader in the way, he's gonna.
But he'll do it to a red top as much as he'll do it to a low grader.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more.
Often the red tops can hold it better than the lower grade as well.
No, I think that's usually what the issue is. I think. Yeah. So all right. So number 6.
Number 6, Richie Ahern.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think Richie didn't show his true hard-hitting style as much as he had done in his banger days and some saloon racing he done. It was more controlled in the F1. But anybody who was at Leicester when he hit Steve Bateman and when he flew over the fence, that has got to be one of the biggest kind of moments in stock car racing.
Yeah,
and it was. You could see it coming halfway down the straight. He just didn't let off, and to go into a court, that's the one.
Had to put it in there. Well, as soon as I knew you'd put him in the list, had to be in there.
To
and
go
he's still
into
trying to try. You can see at the top of the screen, he's still trying to. Whereas he's not finding the pit. He's just trying to steer the car almost while he's in midair,
trying to get it back on the track.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It went into the corner knowing that he was going in way too fast, and it was going to end up in the how it did.
Yeah.
And my dad was waiting by the pit gate because that's just near the pit gate there. And Richie and is on the Greyhound track, and my dad ran over to him to say, "Are you all right there?" And he just coolly undone his belt, said, "Yes, mate," and walked back to the track to the pits as if nothing had happened.
Yeah, amazing.
It wasn't. Yeah, but it was a tough customer.
Yeah,
and a hard hitter. But like I say, I don't think he shoot it as much in Formula One as he did in some of his other formulas.
No.
But when he did, everyone knew.
Hard.
Yeah, he hit
yeah,
hard.
It's interesting because when I spoke to Willie Harrison for Heavy Metal, he referred to this incident. Now, whether or not he didn't remember it particularly well or whatever, the way he remembered it was that. And hang on, since I've got a little thing up on my screen. Never mind, I'll worry about that in a minute. Willie said that he had Glyn Percy behind him going down the back straight towards the pit bend, or was it the home straight towards the pit bend? And he had Glyn Percy in his mirrors, and he dived out of the way just at the last minute to not get hit by Percy, who then hit Richie Ahern instead, which then leapt him over Bateman and over the wires. Whether that's how it happened or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's the way he recalls it.
I believe there was a bit of niggle between Richie and Bateman, though, wasn't there?
Oh, was there?
Yeah, there was. Again, I'll get a bit boring, but I was on the centre green for that one because I obviously got a punch or something. I was on the middle, and you got out your car as you did in those days and stood on the side of the car. And the guy next to me said, "Hey, watch them two. There's a bit of niggle between them two." And I watched Owen go down the straight, and he just didn't break.
Yeah.
So that's the way I remember it.
Probably right. That's probably right.
If you're watching from a different point in the track, you might see a different viewpoint of it. But what I saw was kind of told to watch out for them because there was some niggle, and Richie just didn't bother braking. No. And that's what happened.
Right. So I suppose I'll better do my top 10 if I can remember what they are. I didn't write them down actually. I'll do 10th first while I try and find the rest of the list. But number 10 is Nigel Green. So that would be my number 10. Nigel, again, I mean, for a little bloke with glasses, you wouldn't think he could knock a skin off a rice pudding, but in a stock car, well, he's a fit lad anyway, but in a stock car, really, really hard when he wants to be. I mean, he was hard in F2s because when he talked about, trying to make a name for himself in F2s. He had to really sort of fight his way against the mixed orders of this world, to try and stamp his authority. And he used that similar sort of attitude as soon as he went into F1s. I mean, if he was going to make his mark, so I found a picture of him at long last. He was going to, he had to get stuck in, and he had to against some major rivals, and particularly when he was trying to win championships. I mean, there's one famous one at it didn't come off as it turned out. The one at Bellevue for the shootout finale against Speaky, and he had to remove Speaky to get any chance of winning the title, and it didn't work because I think he car was stuck in gear and he couldn't reverse it out, if I recall. I think it was something like that. But he was or is, I don't know if we, hopefully he'll come back. A major force.
Yeah, the sort of, to be honest, I wasn't watching the sort of years where Nigel was in it, so he didn't really come into it. I do remember seeing him at the Bellevue shootout, and I also remember him doing a last bender at Skeggy on somebody. So yeah, he could give it out, but I didn't see a lot of him racing, to be honest. I raced with his dad, who was absolutely bloody useless.
Is that right? I didn't realise his dad was a driver. Is that right? I mean,
yeah, he had one of the QM cars from all us,
right.
Golitis, Pete Morton car. Was it 145? I think he was Mr. Shift. Yeah, but he was bloody useless.
Well, I hope he's watching this, or will do at time at some point. So hopefully he won't take umbrage. I'm sure he won't. But yeah. But
his sons might have been a bit better than he was, I think.
Yeah, well, you both. Well, I mean, his brother was good in mini stocks, wasn't he? Jamie Green, the British champion, I think, in mini stocks.
I think Nigel's lad's doing quite well in karting at the minute.
He is.
That's why Nigel's not racing so much, because he's focusing his attention on his kids, which is fair enough.
I think so.
He said he's done his bit, and it's now time to concentrate on them a bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's never say never for Nigel, but it'll be very rare if he does come out. But hopefully we'll every now and again.
Yeah. Right. Well, my number 9 is Glyn Percy, which someone we've just referred to. Again, I always saw him as a hard man back in the day when I was watching. Well, Glyn quite well. I imagine Colin, because you used his car. I
bought a car. Yeah, bought his car.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and he was a tough nut as well. I mean, I think it was one of the British, the World Finals at Bellevue, the one that I'm trying to think which final it was, that I think Dave Mellor won it, I think, and he went for broke right at the beginning at the start, and he took took Smithy out, I think, and. A great driver as well. I mean, he won major championships and stuff as well. Then he won British and European championships, and he was just a top driver, and again hard as nails as well. And then I've got Kev Smith at number 8, which I think isn't that same as you
Kevin's
actually.
8.
Yeah,
I had Kevin's 8. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So for similar reasons. I mean, he was like all these guys. He was a hard driver to compete against. But I mean, I felt for him obviously in that semi-final. It was a great, fantastic hit, on those front runners to wipe them out. And then I think his clutch started slipping late on in the race. It was a real shame, because it would have been his finest moment, really. I mean, he's finished. He did well in World Finals. I mean, he finished on the podium, I think, didn't he, at Bradford once? And so he's, he wasn't just a bulldozer. And I remember seeing him win. I'm pretty sure he won. Did he win? I saw him win at Boston. He won the final there, and I have a feeling he might have even won the final at Skeggy the same day. I think he did. I might have done all that. That might be just me imagining things, but I know he had a particularly good weekend on those brilliant Skeggy Boston double headers that he used to have. I used to love those. Yeah, but shame we can't have that back anymore. We can't have a double header on a single day. That'd be good. Yeah.
Bellevue and Bristol.
Hey,
Bellevue and Bristol.
yeah, well, it was Smithy would have done it, wouldn't he? Back in the day, he
did.
selling. Well, he did. I know he did both. Money and Volume both, I think, didn't he? But right, so that's I've got Kev 8. I've got Ryan. Unanimously, we've all gone Ryan 7th on the list of our biggest hitters. Another, I've just while we were all off air briefly, we were just, and I know you spoke to Colin while I was trying to reboot my machine. That but Ryan gets short press, short shrift really. We've got other drivers like Speaky and Stuart Smith Jr. who go in with last benders to try and win races, and yet they're applauded, and yet Ryan often, not always, gets criticised for being overly aggressive. But it's stock car racing, for goodness sake. Those bumpers are there to be used, and that's why people go to watch. We want to watch those bumpers being used, don't we?
And nobody out there's not seen racing before, so they know what to expect when they're out there.
Exactly. So that's I've got Ryan 7th, and I've gone Gordon Smith, my old favourite, is number 6. So Gordon's I've put him up there. Brilliant driver, fantastic entertainer, utterly uncompromising on track, a real showman on his day. Could beat anyone on his day as well, for that matter. He'd have some great races with Cronny and Smithy and Mike Close and all the rest of them, and had some fantastic crashes along the way and a few pints. So he was he was fantastic, a fantastic driver. That's my 10th to 6th.